Yo, what's up? Welcome to the Man to Man podcast. We are here. We're back. We're live for another episode. I am one of your hosts, James Howard Jr., and this guy right here, I don't know which way he is on y'all screen, but the other
Bro
guy,
Peters,
what's your
what's
name?
going on, y'all? Yeah,
Cool, man. So we are excited about today. First of all, because dude, I looked at it. We are sneaking up on a year. We did our first
crazy.
episode of the Man to Man podcast relaunch on December the 1st. I looked at it last night, man. And we
Wow.
did a recap back then about Thanksgiving and food and all that kind of stuff. And so,
Theme
first of all,
Vegas.
I'm excited for every big back's favorite holiday, Thanksgiving, right? I'm
It's
excited about that. And then I'm excited, man, that we actually did this thing, bro. We actually stuck to it. It was some months. Well, it's just
yeah,
we ain't
yeah,
gonna talk about that. But hey,
yeah,
we sit here and we're excited. And so today, y'all, we are gonna be I don't know if we're gonna wrap this up, right? I feel like this can keep going, but
yeah.
we're gonna be talking about the last love language from this book right here, The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Yes, I'm being real extra because I got two cameras now, so I'm real
Two
extra.
cameras. Yeah,
For the be I'm gonna get all of this today. And so yeah, this is the book right here, man. I'm pretty excited about it. And today's subject, we're gonna be talking about that physical touch. Yeah.
mm, get it.
All right. Yeah. Okay. If we stay any longer, it's gonna get weird. All right, cool. Before we jump into it, man, let's see how you doing, man. You doing all right?
Yeah, it's Friday, baby. We good. It's weekend time. Thanksgiving right around the corner. So
Round,
excited
man.
about that. Got some chefs that's preparing the Thanksgiving meal. So that's gonna be really cool. Not have to prepare myself. And by
Hey,
chef, we got a friend that's killing it. He killed it last year. He's gonna do it again
okay.
this year. And then we're gonna go to Canyon Lake right before. So Canyon Lake's a little spot in between San Antonio and Austin, and the family's
Sweet.
gonna be there a couple of nights. It's gonna be a good time. So I'm really looking forward to that. And so yeah, Friday today is great. Thinking about all of that, it's good. So I'm good. What about yourself?
Man, we good. I'm excited about it, man. Got a couple of things coming up before Thanksgiving that are some pretty big things for me, man. But that I'm pretty excited about. But once we get past those, man, we gonna be chilling. Looking forward to days off. Looking forward to good food. Looking forward to family
Yeah,
and all that good stuff, man. Yeah, I'm just excited, man, about it.
yeah.
I'm real tired today though. I
You got
just your boy
competition
wanna
coming up.
wanna
Yeah,
wanna be want to be sleep, but we gonna be good though. We gonna be good. So dude, man, let's jump right into it. I'm gonna let you take a little bit of the lead today, because I felt like the Lord has put it on your heart
that's
uh
funny.
to lead
Uh,
today, aka you prepared more than I did. All right.
that's hilarious. I feel like we probably on the same page, but physical touch, that's our love language. So I mean,
Right.
I think for many men, physical touch might be the thing that they find is their top. And
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing because I think it's one that we don't necessarily think about in terms of like it can be more than just physical touch that we experience in physical touch.
Right.
And so like that's kind of how he starts the chapter by just like explaining and defining, just simply put, that physical touch is a way of communicating emotional love. And I think that the physical and the emotional are things that we don't tend to tie together, but it's kind of like the brain and the senses. I feel like
Right.
our brain is connected to so much of like what we feel, and even though it's cerebral, it kind of manifests itself outwardly, and so we get to experience all of those things because they're interconnected.
Right.
What do you think about that whole concept and idea of like physical touch as a way of communicating emotional love? How have you kind of seen that? And then, what are your first thoughts with that?
Yeah, man. I think for sure it's a big part of it. Of course, we talk about love, and we talk about the action of love. And I think along with like nonverbal communication, physical touch, all these things communicate something. And one thing he said in the book that I actually do remember is that physical touch is just another way of telling your spouse, your wife, since it's the Man to Man podcast, that you love them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And even if it's not necessarily their love language, right? We'll talk about that a little bit later. How even if it's not their love language, it may be a little annoying. We'll talk about that here in the future. Uh, in the future, like it ain't today, right? But,
Yeah.
that's one thing I think that's good, man. And even past the uh physical touch for the goal of intercourse or anything like that, even past that, man, just the simple fact of holding hands when you're out in public.
Yeah.
I think he said, like, even like brushing each other's shoulders as you walk by each other in the kitchen, maybe get a little rub, a little tap, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
whatever. All
Yeah.
of that is just a way of just saying, like, hey, I see you and I
Yeah.
love you. And one
Yeah.
thing that was cool for me was he gave the challenge to the men to, like, it's gonna sound weird when I say it, but to touch your wife in public, right?
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
said, like, like if y'all at a party, just talking to her, putting your hand on her back, right? Putting your hand on her shoulder, in a way of you just saying, like, hey, even in a room full of people, girl, I still see you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's not that
Yeah.
you try to get to something later, I mean, it
Right.
might, right? But it's just that idea of just saying, like, hey, I see you, hey, I love you. And I think it's an important part. I think it's an important part of any relationship. Like I say, even if it's not their primary love language, there is always a room for a healthy balance of physical touch in a marriage that I think will benefit it in a good way. So,
Yeah.
long
So when
answer
you
to a question.
no, I think that's great. When you think about you and your wife's relationship, is your top physical touch and is her top physical touch? And how have you guys navigated that space of
And
communicating via?
so
That's what I'm really
so
interested about.
we've talked about this, right? Because we went through this book when we were, I think, in premarital counseling or dating or something like that, and we talked about how our love languages are shifting,
Yeah.
right? And for me, for sure, physical touch is my top love language. All right, you rub my back, you put your hand on my shoulder, you grab my hand, you got me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's how I feel love. My wife is not. It's not at all. Like, and I mean, it's funny because it talks about it in the book. It talks about being aware of it, and it's not that she
Mm.
doesn't love me, and it's not that I don't love her, because we don't do the physical touch thing as some people may think it should happen, right?
Yeah.
But it's just something for her. When it gets to a certain point, it's just like, all right, now,
Yeah.
all right, that's enough, right? And it's not that she's just saying, like, I hate you, stop touching me. It was just like, hey, that's just not the way that she receives love the best, and I have to be aware of that, man. But
Yeah.
it's pretty cool, man. We went through this, and we were just talking about how a lot of stuff has shifted for us as far as love languages. Um, Being married for going on 14 years now, having a kid, and just being with each other for so long, stuff is shifting in a good way, and I think
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. How about you and your wife, man?
Yeah. No, I
Physical
think
touch.
it's the same dynamic. So mine's is physical touch and hers is more acts of service, quality
Mhm.
time. Acts of service is probably her top, quality times right there under it. So it's always interesting our dynamic and how we engage one another. There's this idea and reality of what he talked about too, is like, know your wife's love language or your spouse's love language and pursue that. Like, don't pursue your love language, regarding your spouse. But really think about it. And I think that's the hard work that you got to do, because it requires you to do something that is not natural to you or outside of who you are. And so, like, there was this idea that he talked about that I thought was good. He just talked about, how we are shaped by our parents. Or he told a story about a person who ultimately they grew up a certain way and seeing a certain thing with their parents. And it was like their parents, the dad, appreciated her mom in the ways that she was cooking and was doing all these things and just showing appreciation. And so she saw that growing up, and then when they got married, she thought that it would translate and that her husband would just appreciate the fact that she was cooking for him. It's like, I'm trying to express love to you. And the husband's love language was physical touch. You're like, I really don't care about what you cook. I'm a meat and potatoes guy. Don't try to be a gourmet chef. Like, I don't want all of that. And I think that's something that, you know, many marriages have, and that's something that we've had to work through of like, man, like, what is your love language? And on top of that, you're not my parents. And there's
Right.
something that has shaped me in how I view this marital relationship that I need to work through, because if I go off of that, then it's not going to be the healthiest marriage, because I'm going to have expectations or thoughts of you that are based on what I saw growing up, and you're
Right.
totally different. You're not my mom and my dad. And
Right.
so let me not think that the formula to a healthy marriage is per se doing the same thing. There may be some components that are good to have in, you know, the bag, but
Right.
this is a totally different person, and I have to do the work of learning my spouse. And so that's the hard work, and I think that's kind of been the struggle for us, for my wife and I. It's just like, which you could probably hear her in the background talking, but it's this whole idea of like, okay, like, dang, i'm not used to I'm not used to seeing physical touch within this relationship,
Yeah.
which is what my wife might say. Like, I'm not used to seeing, like, holding hands. That's not necessarily a thing because my parents didn't do that. And I'm like, but that's a thing for me. That's how I feel loved. Like, there is something it's not just a physical thing. So although it's weird, you're
Yeah.
filling my love tank in ways that you don't even know.
Right.
So that's kind of how I've seen that kind of expressed, which I think is is fitting and good for couples and for married people to see. But yeah,
Yeah. I think too, man, for that, when we think of physical touch, at least for the guys, at least for me, the first thing that wants to come to mind is like, hey, what can this lead to? Right? We married, we legal. We want
we
it to lead to intercourse, right? That's what we want it to be.
yeah, we want to
And like, right, like this has an end goal, homie,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, but it's so much more
yeah,
than that, right? Like we were just saying earlier, like when they were talking about when your spouse is hurting, right? If they're crying, if they're sad, and like physical touch could be an important part of helping them heal. Um, and just chilling, like, chilling on the
yeah,
couch, holding hands, letting your feet touch each other, stuff like that. That, of course, knowing your husband, knowing your wife, making sure that stuff isn't annoying to them, right? But
yeah, yeah.
like, it doesn't always have to be, oh, this gonna end up
Lead to
we
something.
get
Yeah,
lucky tonight, right?
yeah,
It could
yeah,
just be something as simple as just like, hey, the end goal of this, no matter what may happen later on, is for me just to express, girl, I
yep,
love you. Or her
yep,
to express, man, I see you. I love
yeah.
you. I appreciate you. And stuff
Come on,
like that.
you talking that talk.
Good.
Uh,
Yeah, man.
you talking about love like it. So as you were talking, the thing that came to mind that I think is maybe a good segue is just this reality of well, let me just say this, like, simple statement: physical touch is a way of communicating emotional love. When we
Mhm.
talk about the emotions as men, we typically say like men are not emotional,
All right.
but because our top love language is physical touch, I think the quickest way to see a man's emotions is to keep from him physical touch, like to
Mm,
reserve physical touch and not express that.
right.
We get all kinds of in our feelings, all
Right.
kinds of angry, upset, but physical touch, like an absence of it, could actually communicate withdrawal or this lack of love that I don't think we tend to always kind of think about. But I think it also like just reveals how like emotional we actually are as men. Like
Right.
when we don't have that aspect of physical touch, which he talks about this in a couple of the stories that he shares, where, you know, again, like the wife is, you know, doing all the things, but she's not coming home, and like he just wants her presence and her touch, and realizing at the end of it, physical touch was his love language. Wife didn't know that until after, and then once she started implementing that, everything was gravy. It was good.
Right.
But it's just so interesting to see how connected our emotional state is, when we don't get the physical touch that we're looking for as men. And
Yeah.
so like just knowing that I think is good. But just that whole idea and concept of like how connected it is. It is an emotional thing, not just a physical thing, which I think is just kind of good. Have you seen that kind of play out in y'all's marriage? Because I think for me, there have been plenty of times where I'm like, well, there have been plenty of times where, let me just say this, there would be no tension in the marriage. I would just be emotional that day. And as a man, hard to just express. She'd be like, "What's wrong with you?" I don't know. And then get the physical touch, and it'd be like a healing balm in some ways. And I'm like, this was the feel that I needed. And I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
And I feel completely different after, whether it be actual physical touch that led to something or
Yeah.
just her just saying, hey, like, I'm just going to embrace you and love you in this moment.
Mm.
I've seen that physical touch change the dynamic and the temperature to my emotions. It's been disarming in a lot of ways. And I'm like, dang, I didn't realize all I needed was a hug.
All I needed was a hug, man.
A little
And
bit more if I could get it.
yeah, right. And I think, especially as men, right, the culture, history has told us to hide emotions and to hide feelings, but
Yeah.
like God gave it to us, man. We try to claim that women are the ones who are super emotional,
Yeah.
but we are emotional creatures. I mean, that's a
Yes.
way that we
Yes.
communicate. That's a way that we experience life, and we as men have to be
Yeah.
real about our emotions. And like you said, there have been times where a touch, a rub on the back, a holding of the hand, a stroke on your head,
Yeah.
it just calm you down,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like last week, like I was just in the kitchen, just chilling, cooking or doing something, and she just came and just rubbed my back
Come on, Mo.
and it just went on. It just
Yeah.
like, and I was just like, and I wasn't trying to be like, hey, what that mean? Like, hey, huh? No, it was just like, yo, I
You
appreciate
signal us
that.
hope.
That made me feel good, right?
Yeah.
That made
Yeah.
me feel, as a man, that made me feel good.
Yeah.
That just a little bit of light, a little bit of fresh air, was just went through
Exactly
me,
what you
because it
need.
was just like, it's just what I needed, man. And I think on the same note, we as men and just as couples have to be careful not to abuse that too,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we've all been there before, where you mad at each other and you want to try to reconcile. So you reach out for a hand and the hand gets jaked away. You reach out for a shoulder and it's like, don't touch me kind of deal. It
Yeah.
communicates like, hey, I'm still angry at you. I'm mad at
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
Even though they may say it, you may feel like, oh, I don't really love you, kind of deal. And so I think like being
Mm.
aware of it on both ends is
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
because I mean, the whole idea of not going to bed mad at each other and stuff like that. It's been plenty of times where we mad at each other, but if I can rub a hand or get close to her and she let me stay there, I was like, okay, cool, we good, all right. All right,
Yeah.
even though we may not have said nothing, or we didn't do anything, it was just like, all right, cool. She let me lean on her,
Yeah.
so okay, she ain't mad no more, or she let me rub her shoulder, she didn't pull away. So okay, cool, we good, we good, we good. So all
Yeah.
of that's communicating, and we have to just be aware about it on both ends, for the positive and for the negative part of it. So
Yeah, I think that brings up the idea, like I was thinking about as you were talking. It's like, don't substitute physical touch for therapy, and not therapy from the sense of you got to go to a therapist, but like there's needed work that y'all probably need to do. And a lot of times, what we do is we say, "Oh, well, we reconciled. How'd y'all reconcile?" Well, we was intimate, and it was like, no, like there's more work that you actually got to do, because once the feeling and that moment is over, you still got a whole reality that you hadn't worked through, and you can't just continue to just mask it with physical touch thinking that the
mm,
problem is going to be resolved. Like,
right,
it's great that you took a step toward opening yourself up to be able to receive physical touch, but there's still some actual work that you got to do. And so often we abuse it in that way, where it's like
right,
we're using this so that we don't have to do the needed work in the marriage to actually work through some hard things. And
right,
so just because y'all are, which I think it could go both ways. just because y'all have physical touch and it's present in your marriage doesn't mean that you've resolved all your problems. And when physical touch is absent, it might mean that there are some problems that need to be resolved. And
Right.
so, I think that there are those things that, are just really good for couples to just kind of have in their bag. Be like, hey, look, like we need to work through this. Physical touch might be great, but we need to work through some things that I think are helpful. There was a thought that I had, boy, and I know it was good. It was after that thought of physical touch that I wanted to hit on. Um,
Bring
Literally
her back to us. Remembrance, Lord. He
bring
gonna
it
bring
back.
it back.
Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost, come back. Communicates love and desire. Physical touch can make or break a relationship. It can communicate hate or love. That's not what I was trying to get to. Ah, man, it's gone,
Hey,
bro. It's
it'll
gone.
come back,
It's
man.
one of those.
You
One
just
of
you
those.
inter-
Day.
just interrupt me, because I'm about
Yeah,
to forget what I was about to say.
go ahead.
No, man. I just think, man, just see. I forget. What was you just saying?
I was talking about how we mask, and sometimes we use physical touch as a substitute of overdoing the like needed work.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. I remember now.
yeah,
Yeah, because you just think about, especially like in like toxic type of relationships, where they feel like, hey, if we've had sex, we good, right?
yeah,
Um, and I'm not saying that's the case for all relationships, but if you in that kind of
I
relationship,
remember.
right, that
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
hey, just because we did it last night, so that means we all right. But as soon as you get ready to leave in the morning, it's gonna be that same issue that you got mad about before, just because y'all made up last night doesn't mean that, like you said, that the situation is over. And so, like you said, that's another way of abusing physical touch
yeah,
to like you said, mask the thing, because if homeboy got riz, as the kids say, and he don't want to argue, he just be like, come here, girl, you know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
he know that if he just touch
What
her
he
the
got
right
something to
way,
say.
it can
Yeah,
avoid, really talking about what they need to talk about.
yeah,
Like you got to use that power wisely, right? If
right,
there's
right,
something that really needs to be addressed, like you said, we can't substitute physical touch or intimacy or sex to be the end all be all, that if we are doing it, then we are okay, right?
yeah,
And that's just
yeah,
not the case. In some cases, it can just make it worse
right,
because of the intimate connection, the spiritual connection that is had when two come together in intercourse or whatever. It can just build on to just a lot of issues that aren't being resolved, man. So
I
yeah,
remember my
yeah,
thought. So
there it is.
to
Go.
that point, I think so. No situation is one to one. So whenever we
Right.
talk, I think that it's always trying to have multiple people in mind. So obviously, we don't want to substitute um, physical touch for therapy or the needed work that's needed. But I think what's funny, like in pastoral ministry, as I'm counseling married couples a lot, you'll just like as you kind of dialogue and kind of get some of the idea of where they are as a couple, as a married couple, and everything, you start realizing some of the problems that they have is really simple. It's like, when was the last time y'all were actually intimate or close? And then they'll say, like, it's been a minute. Oh, that there we go. Bingo. Because I think, you got one side that says, hey, don't use this as a substitute. But I think there's another side that says, hey, you don't have a mountain of problems that you can't overcome. You
Mm,
just refuse to have any type of closeness to one another. And that's
mm,
actually the simple problem and the issue that you have. So maybe as you assess your marriage, you find yourself like, man, like we really don't have no problems. I don't know why, like we just are not connecting. And it's like, well, y'all ain't been together for some time. And maybe there's a good reason why. Maybe the kids, maybe, work, maybe all of these different outside factors have prevented y'all from becoming close. But maybe it's ultimately as easy as saying, like, man, we just need time. And it
right,
might not lead to nothing, but we just
right,
need time to grow in our intimacy together. And I think that's sometimes the issue. Like some people are like, I just don't know. And we don't know the solution. It's like, no, the solution is actually pretty easy and simple. Y'all ain't spend time together. So it
right.
makes just
Just
that
take
y'all
work.
not connecting. It take work. It take work,
Yeah.
and maybe you just need to add a little more physical touch and see how much that changes the dynamics. You want that man to wash dishes, rub his back a little bit more. I'm sure he'll wash some dishes. You know what I
Right.
mean? You
Yeah.
want him to do, all the tasks, the honeydew list. Give
Yeah.
him some more love and watch that brother start working. He just be,
Yeah.
I don't know where this energy came from and this motivation. Just men are just like that. I don't. My wife's like, this is all you want? Not necessarily, but it
It's a
do
big
some
part.
wonders if you
Yeah.
add a little bit more. So that was the other side of the token. I think it's two sides because not every situation is 1-to-1, but there's some like simple things sometimes. I think it's always funny when I'm talking to couples and I'm like, yeah, so can I be, how deep can we go? Can I ask a real question? When was the last time y'all were intimate? You know what I mean? And obviously we got a mature audience. So, when I say intimacy, we know there's a physical intimacy that I'm actually referring to. And I think sometimes you can look at that and say, well, it's been some months.
Right.
Like, well, that
Right.
brother is empty right now. I just want you
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
So
man. And I think too, man, I had a friend of mine, man, who went through some things as far as their marriage. And as the relationship started to restore, and I mean they've been back together for a long time now, man. It was a season that when him and I were talking about just how they were doing, that that trust or that intimacy was lost because he had been physical, with another woman. And
yeah,
so there was a season after the healing, after separation and getting back together, where like they had to like be intentional in
mm,
like set days to be like, yo,
yeah,
we finna be together. Like baby girl finna go away.
yeah,
And even if we don't have sex or whatever, like we finna be together. And that's the goal of us being
yeah,
together. If it doesn't happen, that's fine. But they set time aside for a season in their lives to continue to physically be there with each other and just focus on that. And when we talked about it, I was like, man, that's kind of crazy.
yeah,
But he was just like, man, it's what we had to do. He was
yeah,
saying it was so
yeah,
much damage there, but this is my words now, not his. There was so much damage there. There was so many things that were just not right, that once they got back to a healthy spot, that had to be something that was done in a systematic type of way, which is,
yeah,
kind of depending on the situation, can be
yeah,
weird or not. But for a
yeah,
season, they had to do that to get back to where they needed to be in their relationship. And I'm sure, things got more organic as things and healing was being completed and stuff like that, man. But it just showed the importance of the unfaithfulness in the past, that
yeah.
physical touch, his wife not having it, and then
Wow,
her
wow,
finding out that he was getting it from somebody else. Like
yeah,
that just
yeah,
it just did a lot of damage, man.
yeah,
In that healing process that came back together, man. It was
wow,
just it's
yeah.
cool to just see. I mean, because they're healthy, they're thriving now, they got another kid, like
Come
just
on.
all this kind of stuff, man. It's just cool, man, to see.
Yeah, that makes me think, bro. Because as you were saying that, I think that there's this reality when it comes to physical touch and couples, where there are times where things just don't feel normal or right,
Yeah,
or like this just we got all these different things, and those are the things that keeps us from actually expressing physical touch or even experimenting with other ideas. So like the examples at the end of the chapter, it's like, well, if you're not used to holding hands, like maybe you should try holding your spouse's hand. Or, I think one that was really big, the example is like when you're with family, because that's one of them spaces where it's just kind of awkward. It's like, why are y'all doing all of that? But what
yeah,
it communicates to your spouse, or a level of safety. And I'm like, I just don't see myself making out with my wife in front of her family, which that's not what he was saying, but
right, right, right,
that was the visual I got. And I was
right.
like, yeah, see that is what actually keeps me
What y'all
from,
doing over there?
yeah. But then all at the same time, it's like, it's weird, but there's something that like is connecting with their heart and they're saying, I want that. You know,
Yeah.
that's the type of love that I want with my spouse. And I think it's just a great example. And it's, you know, counter our culture and society. Like, you know, it's just like that's not something that you see a lot of. And when you do see it, it's different. And
Yeah.
I think it's like, well, why have they been married for 60, 70 years? Because there's a lot of that intentionality, a lot of that extraness that is
Hmm.
actually translated to true intimacy and genuine care and love for your, you know, significant other, that just keeps that thing going and healthy in ways
Yeah.
that if you didn't do it. So it's like I feel like there's an encouragement in some ways. It's like, hey, if this is uncomfortable for you, try it. Maybe it ends up actually being for your benefit.
Mm.
But then there's also a charge, like for guys like me. So today, the 15th, is me and my wife's dating anniversary.
Hey,
So like, I
it's
can't tell
like
you now
20
how many
years, ain't it?
years. Yeah, I was about to say I can't even tell you how many years now. I mean, we definitely in the teens. So 13, 14, maybe 15
Yeah.
years when we started dating, 2010. So do the math, however long that is. Is that 14 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So am
That's
I
math
right?
right there.
That's
I
smart.
think
Okay.
so.
Okay.
That's
That's
good
pretty
math
deep.
right there.
That's good,
I
man.
think
It's just
so.
right there.
Hey.
And so like just, you know, the intentionality of when we were dating, she's like, you should open my door. You used to do all these things. Hold my hand while we driving in the car, like all of these different dynamics. I think the encouragement for men is the reminder, go back, get back to that. In some way, shape, or form. Like, you know, you might not be killing it like you were before because you had a little more excess financially, but there are
Right.
still things that you can do today that might actually, your physical touch might benefit your marriage in a way. It might be the missing ingredient that your marriage has been missing for a long time. Might bring life back to your
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
saying that on both ends. I think that even if your wife isn't wired with physical touch being her top, I just think that showing that expression physically, not to say like you going all out trying to touch her every moment you get, but there are certain moments, right? Certain opportunity. It's like evangelism when we sharing the gospel. There are just certain opportunities and moments where it's like, okay, this is one of those home run moments. God set it up so perfectly. All I have to do is just, I ain't got to do nothing. All I got to do is just
Right.
hear Jesus loves you. You want to know how Jesus loves you? Yeah, and it's just they
Yeah.
receptive and ready. And I just think a lot of that prepares the way. Prepares the way. So yeah, I think that's good. Can we talk about it? I know we said we are going to talk about it in the future. I think the future is here. The touch, you know, that just is irritating and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Uh, I
let
just
me let me
feel
talk
like,
let me talk about two things before we go, because
go
you
ahead,
made me
go
think of
ahead.
two things. I
Hey,
actually
I'm
wrote them
glad.
down.
Hey, okay,
So man,
cool,
it's
cool. We good.
my my wife and I, man, we were talking about this, and we were just talking about this chapter. We talked about love language being my top one. And she
Yeah.
kind of started the conversation like, well, I don't really show you love like I probably should. And I was like, no, I said, you do. I
Wow.
said, and so I gave her examples like at our church,
Come on now.
man, like I'm a pastor, but during the service, I can go sit where my family is, right? So I'm in
Yeah.
the front, we'll do the thing, and when it's time for the sermon, we can go sit with our family. So sit with my family, and like without a doubt, right, without hesitation, every time I'm over there, she either grabs my hand, she'll put her hand on on my knee, or she'll like curl up, because the air conditioner be kicking, boy. We got a new unit too. I be wanting to turn it down low so she can get closer, right? You know,
Yeah.
and and so I was just telling her, I said, like, you do, like, it's just hardwired in her that even though it's not like a big, like, come here, big boy, let me give you a hug, let me rub your back, let me give you a kiss, right? She does all those like micro touches or whatever you want to call them that are just as loud, right? That are
Yeah.
just as significant to me, where I say, yeah, you do. And I feel that, man. It does something to my soul to just feel her touch me, right?
Wow.
In that way, because it's just like, so she expressed, like what she's thinking. She was like, I see you, like, I know you're working hard. I know it's basically a work day for you. It's not just church, right? You're doing a great job and stuff like that. So she expressed like what she's thinking in those moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which just, I mean, it's taking it to a whole nother level for me, because I was like, man, in those moments, especially when it's like a crazy Sunday where you got parents outside, you got this to do, I got this event, I need to go finish this and this and that, and then I'm able
Yeah.
to sit down during the sermon and she just touched me, just grab my hand or curl up next to me, man. It's just like, man,
Float.
like
Float.
that means a lot, right? In
Yeah.
those 30 minutes that we have, and then they go, and then I'm back to the grind of just a Sunday, you know.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's one thing, man, I want to just kind of point out, like, even those, like, I don't know if he said it, but like micro touches, so what I like to call them, those
Yeah.
small, quick kind of, hey, I see you, hey, I love you kind of touches are important too.
Did you
So
write down the second thing?
I did. I got
So to your point, you brought up a good point. You communicated to your wife that, hey, you are actually loving me. And I think
yeah.
even though physical touch is what it is, physical touch also requires,
I
oh,
just
come
got me
on,
some points, boy. I just got
brownie
me some points.
points. Well, hey,
I
you
wasn't
gonna
even
get
trying to,
my
man.
boy gonna get some physical touch tonight. Come on now. but
Ah!
you communicated that, you know, hey, this is how you're showing love to me. You are. Now I think on the other end, like for us, we've got to communicate the ways that like we desire physical touch. And it's like, hey, like, I would love if you just randomly rub me on the back or initiate certain transactions. I would love to not just be the only one. Like, you know, these are the ways in which my top love language. I definitely, these are the things that I need from you regarding my top love language. Because I think that, you know, we tend to just think like, oh, they should know, or, you know, just assume that it's just one way of touching us that is actually helpful. And it's like, nah, like, you know, I like other kinds of touch. Like, you know,
Right,
I like hugs, you know, I like cuddling. You know,
right.
sometimes the brother want to beat a little spoon. I don't want to beat a big spoon. You know, sometimes I just want to lay up, watch Netflix on the couch, and, you know, beat a little spoon for a little bit. You
Just
know,
a
that
little
not a
bit.
lot of brothers want to admit that, but, you
Right,
know, sometimes
right,
brother want to be cuddled. You know,
right,
just
right.
one time,
Because
maybe. You know.
when you think about it though, when you think about like childhood and
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that, man, like for me, my mama talk about it. You know, they like to tell embarrassing stories, right? But like, man, I remember her telling a story that was embarrassing, but it just explains a lot. She was like, I remember I used to rub his back when I used to lotion him up after his bath. He used to just sit there and he just used to love it, just sitting there just naked. And I just be rubbing his little back. And he just be
Oh
sitting
man.
there. And anytime he did, I just rub his head and stuff like that. And as a kid, it was like, okay, obviously that was something
Yeah.
that was expressed in love with my parents, like when my dad hugged me or when my
Yeah.
mom rubbed my back and stuff like that. Like that's how I received love as a kid, and it
Yeah.
translates into my adulthood as well.
Wow.
It's just something, man, that I think that was just pretty cool, man. Even though those stories are super embarrassing or whatever, it's just like, okay, cool. Like I'm still me. I'm still the same person. That's how I
Right.
receive love
Right.
as a kid, and I'm receiving it as a grown
Wow.
man. And like you
Wow.
said, even though it may not seem manly to tell your wife, "Hey, I want you to rub my back, and I want you to twirl my hair. I like it when you do this to my hair." Like it's okay to tell your wife that.
Yeah.
Like it's your wife,
Yeah.
right? Like, I
Yeah.
like it when you play with my ear, or, just whatever it is. Like
Yeah.
it's okay to express those things to your wife and vice versa, of what you like and what you enjoy. And it, yeah,
You
it's just
you
good to
can't
talk about that
you
kind of stuff.
can't expect what's not communicated. And too
Right,
often we have expectations that have not been vocalized or expressed, and you know, we get up in arms about it. And it's like, well, you know, I don't read thoughts, I don't read minds, I
right,
can't just know. And it's kind of like the story that he shared with, I think it was Pete and Patsy, it might have been somebody else, but Patsy didn't know that, you know, she just needed to be home when Pete got home from work. And she's like, you never said anything. Like, how am
right,
I supposed to know when you're gonna be home? You know, and you don't tell me when you're gonna be home. So then I can't give you the physical touch you're looking for because I don't know when you coming. And
right.
so yeah, I think it's just highly important and healthy to have that. And hey, don't be surprised that you're missing something because you ain't said it. Now, some other couples, they have the other end of the problem. I done said this 10 times. She still ain't got it. And it's like, okay, yeah, y'all got some other things y'all need to work through, but
Yeah.
you can't expect what's not communicated.
Yeah. And I think that goes beyond physical touch too. That goes beyond that. Just so many expectations. I think that's like marriage 101,
Yeah.
right? For those of you who are about to get married or have just been married for less than a year, heck, less than 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Communicating like simple stuff like who's gonna do the dishes, who gonna
Right.
fold the laundry, who gonna
Right.
sweep, who gonna vacuum, who gonna clean the bathrooms, who gonna do that, stuff like that. Who gonna pump gas in the car, right?
Mm,
Because my wife
mm,
don't like that. And if
yeah.
I don't pump the gas, it's a problem because we didn't talked about this before, right?
Right. Right.
And so it's just the communication on so many different levels, man. I want to talk about the other thing that I wrote down. Did you have anything else for that before we move
Go
on?
ahead. Go ahead.
All right,
I'm
man. So
with it.
you talked about physical touch in front of your family, not just
Uh-huh.
being weird with it. But man, I remember one time, man, my wife talked about she don't like pump gas. Um, and so we had a nice little conversation about that yesterday. I didn't put enough gas in the car, but she made it
Yeah.
back home, so it was all right. So anyway, side note, man.
Make it to the
I
nation.
think I think when I think about like my parents, um, even as a kid, I would pretend like I'm throwing up in my mouth when they hug or kiss or
Yeah.
touch each other and stuff like that. It was never just inappropriate, right?
Right.
But especially as a teenager, you're like, come on, man, bro. Like y'all got a whole room. Just go. Don't right.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I knew my dad loved my mama.
Ew, brother.
At
Ew.
the end of the day, I knew that my dad loved that woman more than anything in the world, right?
Wow.
And I
Wow.
knew
Yeah.
that she loved him, even though they may fuss, they may argue. That's just marriage, right? This is life,
Mhm.
right?
Wow.
I could see that they loved each other. They
Yeah.
didn't just say it, but if they were cooking together or folding clothes together, matching socks together, being together, hugging each other in the kitchen, bumping each other as they went by, like I saw that a lot.
Mm.
And the physical touch that my parents had with each other, like I said, it was never just anything just inappropriate or anything like that. But it was just like, man, like as much as I want to pretend, especially as a teenager, to be like,
Right.
ugh, oh my
Right.
gosh, this is disgusting, right?
Right.
Deep
Right.
down inside, I was like, man, my dad really loved my mama, dude. Like he really
Man.
does. And he
Man.
he doesn't just say it, but he shows it, and he shows it in
Wow.
front of us. And he'll
Yeah.
say like nasty stuff like, "How you think you got here, boy?" And I was like, "I don't want to talk about that. Nope.
Why we gotta do that?
Nah.
Why we
La
gotta
la
go
la. Right.
there?
I still knew that he loved her, and he
Wow.
showed it. He showed it, man.
Yeah.
So I think that's like you said, showing it in front of your family, showing even in front of your kids and stuff like that. Like my baby, she when I'm getting hugs from my wife, she always try to make sure she gonna get a hug too. Like y'all ain't finna be hugging up in here,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Without it being a group, it's finna be a group hug, right? But
Yeah.
intentional with showing her that hey, I love your mom, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
hug her and I'll give her a kiss on the cheek and I love her. And yeah,
Mhm.
you can come, you can get a hug too, but you need to know I love your mommy. And this is me
Man.
showing
Man.
this in a way. This physical touch that transfers down generationally as well that I've seen true in my life that's been healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you've seen is not normal, and I think even with the way that our culture and society today, the things that are placed in front of our eyes to take in on the screens, and that there's always like, especially when it comes to marriage, it's not valued, it's not honored. When we talk about physical touch, it always is something that leads to an end and not necessarily something that communicates, hey, I'm committed to this person, not
Yeah.
just trying to get from this person
Right.
what my desires want. And I think that's what society, how they view physical touch. It's not, I've made a covenant with this person and committed, and it's showing my union with it, but it's more so like I have all these raging desires, and it's selfish. It's not selfless. And I think,
Right.
it's good for our kids to see that, because it normalizes this idea of like, man, commitment and love and honor and respect, and it's just so counter our culture. So I'm thinking about make America great, make hugs great again. Where it's like it's a normal thing, and it's not like I'm throwing up in my mouth because it's just so counter what I've seen in society and throughout, and whoever it is who made me feel like this was disgusting.
Mm,
I hopefully could and I think when we get older and we start understanding a little bit more of those dynamics too, like physical touch doesn't have to be disgusting. We start thinking about kind of similar your example of your parents is like, I know my parents loved each other. And it's like I also have the grid and the example to go off of for my own life. And so when I think about my marriage, I want to communicate the same thing to my kids. And that's not something that I didn't have in the bag. I had that example and I have something to go off of. And what a blessing, what a gift that is, bro. Because what you
yeah,
had, I think the same for me. I grew up with both parents in the home, and that's
right,
just not a lot of our brothers' stories. There's a
right,
lot of divorce, a lot of separation, a lot of single mothers, a lot of, hey, we co-parenting type thing and not necessarily committed. And we co-parented, but we low-key hate each other. And there's always drama around, like, why are you bringing your girlfriend? We didn't have to experience that. And so it's
right.
like beautiful to see, and our kids should see a lot more of that. And so praise God that you were able to see that and then also able to model it, because yeah, it's not normal. It's not normal at all. So make hugs great again.
That's great, yeah, dude. Hey, so you wanted to jump into physical touch
Yeah,
being something that's
too
annoying,
much,
man. Let's talk. We got last 10 minutes of the
too
live
much.
stream, man. Let's talk about it, man. Let's talk
Yeah,
about that. So
yeah.
you were
Wifey,
gonna start it off, so I'm gonna let you go for it.
yeah, wifey just, there are times when she's just like, hey, I don't need this. Too much. The way she communicates it is like too much stimulation. Like,
Mm,
hey, the kids is talking, you talking, the TV going off, the baby crying, the dog barking. I don't want you in those moments to try to hug me. Or like, here's a really bad one. Because I say to her all the time, you don't like cuddling. And she's like, it's not that I don't like cuddling. It's just that you always want to cuddle when I'm sound asleep. And you want to come into bed all late and try to cuddle with me while I'm dead asleep. And I'm trying to figure out who owned me. And it's hot. You know what I mean? And I'm just like,
it is hot.
I feel that, but that kills any type of cuddling during the day. You be wanting to just and then sometimes it's not there. And so yeah, I think understanding that and knowing that is always good and helps, especially if that's not your spouse's top love language.
Right.
But I think listening to your spouse and being able to discern and gauge, is this the proper time? Because there are a lot of times where I don't need you rubbing on my back when I'm trying to do some work, or I mean, I don't know, maybe it is helpful for some people, but you got to know your spouse. You got to know your
Right.
spouse, and you got to listen to them. Like, don't just pursue it, because I think it goes back to the selfishness piece. Sometimes we look at physical touch in a selfish way,
Mhm.
and when it should actually be selfless. So how can I be more selfless? So maybe you're the spouse that could give more physical touch. Well, that's how you can be more selfless. Or maybe you're the spouse that can consider your spouse a little more and know the times when to give physical touch and say, this moment might not be it. Let me find a better opportunity. Or let me find another way of expressing this physically that is not necessarily irritating to my spouse.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, those were some of the thoughts I had initially.
Yeah,
Oh
I would
yeah,
say the same, like for my wife, man. And it's here's the thing: if our love language is physical touch, we can't get mad at our wives or our husbands, lady, if you watching, if their language isn't that, right?
yeah,
Because like you said, for like even for my wife, it's too much, right? Because like you said, the kids always screaming. Don't
always.
know why. That's just
Just
like I think
yeah.
it's a requirement for children to have volume maxed out at like 150, right? So there's always, doesn't matter what they do, they can be saying their ABCs to the top of their lungs, right? And
Right.
so that's happening. You got the TV on, you got somebody texting on the cell phone, you got something going on over here, you got this it's too much. And then you come all the time, I say, yeah, girl, come here. He's like, oh, but get off of me, right?
You will be
And
close
so
now.
one one thing I've learned, man, is to the whole idea of reading the room. right?
Yeah, that's good. That's good, bro.
And especially like for me, like the way our situation set up, I come home from work, she works from home, but baby girl is still there. And so like I'm getting in, I'm jumping, I'm hopping in the house. I'm fine because I'm off work. Like that ain't a good time to be like, yo, what up, girl? How you doing? You know what I'm saying? Right. And so just through the years, man, like you said, importance of learning your spouse, learning your wife. You just have to be aware of that, man. And one thing, man, I learned it's pretty early in our dating relationship. My wife, I don't even know if she remembers this, man, but my wife doesn't like to be like touched like while she's like sad and crying, which is it was different to me, right? Because like naturally, like to a sense, right?
Yeah,
Naturally you want to like console people, you want to try to help them out. But I remember one time, man, I like rubbed her on the back and it just made her cry more,
oh,
right?
man.
And she
Yeah,
didn't want to cry more at that moment, so she just was like, "Don't touch me. I don't want to be touched right now." And
yeah,
so naturally, you think somebody crying, you want to help them feel better and stuff like that. And so just knowing the situation and knowing the room, there have been times where she was sad and she wanted to be held and she wanted to cry and she just wanted to let it out. And so I was
yeah,
like, oh boy, this
yeah.
is my time,
Let's
you
go.
know.
Yeah,
And
go
so
time.
I
Yeah,
think I think it's just a fluent, organic type of thing that you just have to be aware of, especially if it's not their top love language. Because, like I said, man, you're gonna run into just being irritated and being annoyed on both ends because
yeah,
you was like, well, I'm trying to express love to you. Like, well, I don't want to be touched. Well, why not? You don't love me? That ain't what I'm trying to say. I just
yeah.
but that communication, like you said, man, just being aware of it. So
Yeah, so read the room. That was amazing. That's amazing because I think that's not done often enough. But I think, also like, so you read the room and then create the atmosphere. It's like, hey, you want physical touch, but you ain't create. You just came home and the whole house was jacked up. And kind of to
mhm,
your point, you're like, there are times when, like you and your wife, y'all have certain things that y'all do all the time. But there are moments when you can help with the other things that are not on your list of things to do around the house.
mhm,
And how much like that actually like creates more of an atmosphere for her to draw
mm,
near to you. Because part of
right,
her thoughts is like, there's just a lot that needs to be done and I can't get there until we do this. And so it's like, okay, read the room. You see the house is what it is. You see your wife's disposition is what it is. Start actively, and not just so that you can get physical touch, but to create more of an atmosphere for you to receive that, which what you're looking for. I think not enough husbands are willing to do that work of actually creating the atmosphere. It's like, okay, I'll read the room. It ain't time. Maybe it'll be time 2 hours later and
yeah.
we ain't necessarily done anything. Come on, Mo. What Mo
Yeah,
is
I think
saying?
this is my wife, man. It's funny we talked about this a lot last week. So it says you have to read the room and know your spouse for sure. You may not get it right every time, but be intentional and selfless is the key. I think this one thing that we talked about before on this podcast is that for we as men, when we try something and we don't get it right, we say forget it, right? You
Mhm,
cook dinner for her,
mhm.
she don't like it, you ain't never gonna get it again. I know I done been that way before. Like, oh, well, it's a little salty. Okay, then, well, you ain't never gonna get
Oh,
it again, then, right? It's like, don't get
yeah,
mad because you put too much salt in the food, right? She's
yeah,
giving you
yeah,
her honest opinion about how
right.
she feels about something. Take it, internalize it, get over yourself or whatever emotions you have, and
Because
then
it was
fix
salty.
it, right? Because it was salty. Just because you
Right,
like salt, don't mean that she likes salt like that. And
mm,
so don't put as much salt on the food. You can put salt on your food later, you know?
right.
It sounds very specific. Example, I just pulled that out of the sky. That didn't come from anything. That's just,
Oh,
just came
man.
from our imagination.
Yeah,
But yeah, man, I think as if there's anything that you hear, men who are watching this, man, is that when it comes to your relationship with your wife, you're trying new things, you're trying this whole love language thing out, you're trying to be better at communicating, be better at showing love. Like, don't give up after the first attempt, right?
good.
Especially if there's some tension in the marriage or in the relationship and you're trying to move towards healing and a healthier relationship. Like, your first couple of attempts are probably going to be met with some opposition because if you be honest, you ain't been doing what you're supposed to be doing. So when you start doing what you're supposed to be doing, it's gonna be weird. And so she's gonna be like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what you trying to get? You trying to, you know? And so
Yeah.
if it doesn't work, like with physical touch, she go in and she just like, boy, what you doing? Stop touching me, right? Don't be like, I did, I ain't never gonna touch you again.
Right.
Like, no, it was just a bad moment. It was
Mm.
just a bad moment. Read the room, understand, and like you said, you ain't gonna get it right every time with a lot of stuff in
Right.
marriage, man. But like, just because you don't get it right doesn't mean that you don't continue to try. Right? That's all
Preach.
marriage is, man.
Yeah.
That's all marriage is just trying to figure out the best way to serve and to love your wife. And most of the time, you ain't gonna get it right. But the times you do get it right, man, it's gold. It's
Yeah.
golden.
That's good.
And you're never
That's
gonna
good.
reach those moments where you just, I mean, you hit a home run in the marriage, right?
Mm.
You'll never reach those moments if you are not trying and kind of fumbling and failing into those types of situations.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I did not end that sentence well, but you know what I'm trying
Oh,
to
that
say.
was good. That was good.
So,
Yeah, I think as we think about those 5 different love languages today being physical touch, I think all of them, intentionality and selflessness is kind of, your wife talked about that. And I think that encapsulates the whole idea. We have to be intentional and then we have to be selfless. And that's the only way we're going to draw near to one another in love in the ways in which we see growth and health. And so if you want to grow and you want to be healthy in your marriage, those 2 things need to be present. There's got to be some work done to do those things. So that's good, bro.
yeah, that's good. So here's what we got, people. If you're watching this live, and even if you're watching this on a replay, I want to challenge you guys. First of all, if you're not subscribed, make sure that you're subscribed on YouTube. Make sure you're following the group on Facebook. And if you're watching this, I don't know where else we got this on. I don't think we have it on TikTok. But anyway, let us know. We went through all 5 love languages already. And so we went through words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. The next chapter is discovering your primary love language, and then there's a whole bunch of other chapters that are in this book. And so if y'all would like to see us go through more of this stuff, y'all let us know,
Yeah.
because we don't want to stop this book. Y'all really couldn't see that our focus. So, but I think one that I think we're gonna do for sure, if we don't do anything else, is we'll find a way to kind of challenge you and help you discover your love language. Maybe this is something that you ain't never went through. We've heard about this book and known about this book for years, but you may be watching this video, you never heard about this book before, and you
Yeah.
want to, you're like, yo, I want to figure out this whole love language thing. Whether you're a single man, trying to get married, or y'all are newlyweds or whatever, this is a great thing to go through right there. And so yeah, man, yeah.
That's what,
Anything else you got?
no, it was good. Physical touch.
Cool.
And we're out.
So just kind of let you guys know, we got some new stuff coming up for the new year. So y'all stay tuned. Make sure that you are subscribed for that. If you're listening to this on the podcast, make sure you're following and all this kind of stuff, man. But other than that, dude, I ain't got nothing else. You got something else?
Love it. Nah, that's good. I mean, we right
Cool.
there.
Yeah, so we appreciate y'all. We love y'all, man. God bless. If we are not back before Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. Don't be too big back, as the kids may say.
Yes.
Or be as big back as you can, because it may be the one day that you can enjoy all the food that you want to eat, and you just
Yeah.
work out at the beginning of the year. I don't know. So anyway, love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Have a good one.
Peace.